Sharon,
Go. Okay.
Sharon, I never did get the first, I got the second things that you sent, but what was the first book we were reading? I got Acts, but.
Well, let's start with Acts. I think, did most of us read Acts 17 in your Bibles,
I did.
the passage that we're gonna read this Sunday in church? Okay, good. Well, let's start there then. And we can add, if you have Matthew Skinner's book, you will notice that he spends a piece of time on this particular passage. And that is on page 36, 37, 38. So you might refer to that if you took a look at it. That wasn't specifically in our readings for today, but I know many of you have already read that piece. So let's start. And I want us to read through, I don't know why our Sunday reading finishes at 31 when it should go through 32. So we'll read through 32. Actually through 34. Okay, so Acts 17, verse 22. Where are you? 22 there you are, through 34. Does anybody want to get started on that?
I will. And I'm reading this time from the student Bible because I took notes on it with you last time we did Acts. 22. Paul then stood up in the meeting of the Areopagus and said, "Men of Athens, I see that in every way you are very religious." It was so funny. "For as I walked around and looked carefully at your objects of worship, I even found an altar with the inscription, 'To an unknown God.' Now, what you worship as something unknown, I'm going to proclaim to you. God, who made the world and the everything in it, is the Lord of heaven and earth, and does not live in temples built by hands. He is not served by human hands as if he needed anything, because he himself gave all men life and breath and everything else." Somebody, verse 26.
Oh, and hath made, can you hear me? And hath made of one blood all nations of men for to dwell on all the face of the earth, and hath determined the times before appointed and the bounds of their habitation, that they should seek the Lord, if haply they might feel after him and find him, though he is not far from every one of us. For in him we live and move and have our being, as certain also of your own poets have said, for we are also his offspring.
Somebody pick up from there?
I can. Since we are God's offspring, we ought not to think that the deity is like gold or silver or stone, an image formed by the art and imagination of mortals. While God has overlooked the times of human ignorance, now he commands all people everywhere to repent, because he has fixed a day on which he will have the world judged in righteousness by a man whom he has appointed, and of this he has given assurance to all by raising him from the dead. Next.
30 through 32 to the end.
No, I'll take that.
Never.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jane.
Go ahead. Jane Karsberg, read it.
All right, thank you. At the phrase raising him from the dead, the listeners split. Some laughed at him and walked off making jokes. Others said, "Let's do this again. We want to hear more." But that was it for the day, and Paul left. There were still others, it turned out, who were convinced then and there and stuck with Paul. Among them, Diana, and Areopagite, and a woman named Damaris.
Okay. So as we approach this one, I want to do first from sort of a meta arc. What do you know about this passage in Acts? What can you gather from the text? What might you know already that you bring to this piece?
I sense the confidence of Paul. I love that he's arrived in this city and he kind of takes that bus tour around and he sees all the stuff that's going on and the idols and the religious aspect of the city, and he's ready to talk about it with the locals.
Okay, with the locals. Who are the locals?
Well, I like the fact that we have the Greek, the Dewey. I don't know if they had any of the of course senior monks. Oh, the ones that were super strict and everything.
Who are the locals here?
I think he's in Rome.
He's in
He's
Rome.
in Athens.
He's in Athens.
He's in Athens.
And he's in the Areopagus. He's
Yep.
at the council, gathering space for the council.
So he's talking to leaders.
So who
Oh,
is
yeah.
he talking to here? Not readers, possibly, huh?
Mhm.
One thing I liked, I kind of got the feeling in verse 22 and 3 that he was being a little sarcastic because he says, I see in every way you are very religious. And he found all the altars, and you kind
Right.
of wonder.
So
what
who
was
is he
going on.
talking to?
The Athenians.
Talking to, and what about the Athenians? There's not a Jew that he could throw a stone
They're
at.
all Gentiles.
No, they're in sight.
They're
So, and
Gentiles.
your comment then about that what he's noticing is spot on. There is nothing here that is Jewish. So what does Paul do?
He reaches into where they're at,
He uses everything he knows, and he's a
Yeah.
Roman citizen, right?
right? So
So
he's had to have heard about the Greeks.
He's a Roman citizen, but he's also a stranger.
he's
So
also a
he's-
stranger.
So he's careful to know who they are.
Yes, he is.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the Greeks
it's-
had so many gods that they made statues to, and I think he was referring to that as
Right.
well.
So he in a very sort of non-confrontational way
Exactly.
is able to acknowledge the place where these Romans are.
Mhm.
It's almost like it's not just a speech. He's
Right.
inviting discourse.
He's
Right.
what?
He's
Yeah.
not just a speech. He's inviting
Mhm.
discourse. He wants a
Mhm.
conversation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It is non-confrontational and opens you up to being vulnerable, which makes you accessible, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
He had to have known, going back earlier, Paul says it, and I thought it was in 13 somewhere, where it says, but because the Greeks, the Athenians love to sit and discuss things all day, that's mostly what they do.
Mhm.
So Paul can reach right into that
Yeah.
using the Jewish midrash
Mm, But he
concept.
doesn't. But he doesn't. He
No,
doesn't.
He doesn't.
he reaches into where they're at
Yeah.
in discourse.
Yeah. He
I
does.
think
This morning on the radio, WCLO in Janesville, they had their science program, and in it, they're saying that they have discovered one person started everything. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. But anyway, it was looking beyond the stars. There was something that has been seen beyond a star, and they're confirming that there's only one person who started everything. That's incredible.
So how does that speak to this
The
passage?
gods that Paul is referring to.
The gods?
Well,
Oh,
he's saying,
yes.
he says that there's only one God, and that's it. And that I would
But
say
he's
the
not-
same thing.
But that's not what that's not, but that as Jane Korsberg was saying, I think it's, and Annetta, that what Paul is doing in this place is inviting them into conversation, into discourse,
Right.
into, I understand, he says, what you believe, all of the philosophical conversations that you all have in this very erudite place. So then what we're going to do is identify then what Paul does in the midst of that conversation. Mary Lou, you were going to jump in.
Well, I was just going to say, I think there are subtle references to the Jews.
And not so subtle references.
But not necessarily to the Jews, but to what?
About the
and
Jews.
what has happened. Yes.
Right.
Definitely. Yeah. And not so
Right?
subtle.
In fact, I had to laugh. I mean, I did. I chuckled out loud when I got to the point where we all have to repent. I'm thinking about the Old Testament.
Well,
Yes.
he does. He's got repentance in there. He's got, I mean, and he put this sentence is unrelenting, and in verse 31, second half, and of this he has given assurance to all by raising him from the dead. So, I mean, he, in no uncertain terms, is referencing resurrection, which isn't Jewish, but is what, I mean, I'm not saying that's not a Jewish thing, but that's where he's coming from, is the stories about resurrection, remembering Paul did not witness the resurrection. But all of what he is carrying in his journeys, and that's the sentence that he offers to these thinkers, these people for whom much of their time is spent in talking about stuff.
And much detail, because this is a group of people who have thought it out so well, they've even made an idol, an image, to just in case there's somebody we missed.
Yeah, I kind of love that about them. They don't want to miss anything.
They're thorough.
They want to make sure that they got all their bases covered.
I think it's interesting to imagine verse 33 as to what it probably was, where some of them joined him. And they didn't just go, okay, we believe, we're good, let's follow this guy. There were more conversations. We're only hearing this little bit of the conversation. The conversation probably went on for hours, back and forth. But what about this? But what about that? Because these were intelligent people.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise he wouldn't have given this kind of a speech. And I wish we could get more than verse 33.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be something? Because he doesn't do, I mean, what we get in this part of Acts is, his encounters with the for lack of a better word, the churches that have been planted, the groups of people who are already on board. I mean, he does have things to say to them, of course. That's what we hear. We hear his criticism. We hear his encouragement. We overhear his, we have already said that Paul's letters are like reading somebody's private mail. And in this particular case, it is overhearing Paul's personal conversations with the people in these already beginning to be established, not established, but beginning young groups of people who are followers of Jesus. And this is not that. This is this conversation that probably did. They were all probably laying around in their white robes having this conversation about what Paul was offering to them. And at the end of so many of the stories, we get, and 5,000 were converted and baptized that day. And what do we get here? Some of them joined him and became believers. Some of them, including Dionysius, the Areopagite. So he's a big thinker in this particular place, and a woman named Damaris, and some others.
Can you remind us when this was written?
Acts. When was Acts written?
Yeah.
Late, I think.
Well, again, it's this story about Peter, and then moved to the story about Paul, written by the author of Luke.
Luke, yeah.
So, we're still in the beginnings of what this thing looks like. I'm not exactly sure, but I think we're looking at 80, 90. Let's see if it says
Thought earlier than that. But
even earlier than that.
Yeah, I've got a note that says 63 to 70.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah,
So
mine says 70.
Okay.
So it's still the stories. He's hearing the stories. Luke is reporting what he's heard, right? So he's important.
This author is reporting what he has heard about Peter and about Paul. There is a point at which, and you might be able to put your finger on it better than me. There is a point at which I think Luke, or the author, because where is that change in person? Who can say it? And that it changes from you to I. Like I never remember.
Those are details I
Further
forget.
on, yeah.
But anyway, so we all that is to say that the author, at some point in time, was in Paul's presence.
So then it's kind of like when, I'm sorry, I'm thinking this out. It's like when I tell my children stories, or my dad, who's 90 and tells stories of when he was 30. He's remembering the highlights. He's remembering the conversations, the important parts of conversations, not the details. And I think it's important to remember that. That's the important parts of what we're hearing. We're not hearing the nitty-gritty.
And another layer on that is that the reason for telling the story, when either your dad is remembering and telling you a story, or when you're remembering something and reminding your dad of that, there's a reason, right?
Right.
Very
good point.
And there's an agenda here, and that's an important thing also. To be aware of what the agenda. Well, I do want us, because I think this is fascinating. In Matthew Skinner's beginning on this particular pericope, he says on page 36, because I think Annetta, it helps us to do that very thing. So what Skinner writes is, many years ago, I rode an elevator with Christy Brinkley and Billy Joel. I'm not sure they were even aware I was there. He was humming a Beatles song and she just waited for the door to reopen. But for 20 seconds, I was there. Maybe you have a piece of rubble from the Berlin Wall, or a beloved author once autographed a book for you. We like our mental and physical souvenirs of times we had contact with noteworthy people and places. Those memories give us ways to boast without being obnoxious about it. In a similar way, the passage about Paul in Athens is a trophy story. Look, Our guy was there in Athens, the place that symbolizes the intellectual accomplishments of the ancient Greek-speaking world. Paul spoke, and the Athenians listened. The sheer presence of this story in Acts celebrates the importance of the Christian message and Paul's rhetorical skills. Even if Acts pokes fun at the Athenians as obsessed with exchanging ideas among themselves, still this scene marks a high point in the plot. I mean, I think that, and then Skinner goes on to say that most likely Paul's audience was entirely Gentile, and talks about humanity's search for the divine. And we picked up on all of that. But yeah, the place of this in Paul, in the storytelling, and how important that was. That here he is addressing these Athenians. Go ahead, Anne.
Okay, I just looked up because I couldn't remember, and this is just a side thing to it. So the council was composed of elite officials he's talking to, serving for life, holding authority over homicide cases and religious offenses. And of course, it says it was the hill, the forum, and it was also derived from a pagan Greek Ares, the name Areopagus. But the point was that like you said, these were the guys that were appointed for life, sort of like a Supreme Court, holding authority over religious offenses. So they could have thrown him out and said, hey, you're going against what we are, but they didn't, being good Greek thinkers.
Well, Skinner says that nothing Paul says in his speech would have been terribly controversial to his Greek peers until he gets to the end and declares that this nearby God, so there's the difference, right? That these gods are all, statues, and there's many of them. And Paul declares this God who is with them, and this God who, because he has fixed a day on which he will have the world judged in righteousness by a man whom he has appointed. And of this he has given assurance to all by raising him from the dead. So that when Paul gets there, that was a sort of the major turn on this particular story.
So why is it included?
I think that's why is that line included?
Yeah, why is this story also included? What is important? If 60 years later, or however many years later, they're telling the story again, what's the reason it's so important that it has to take up, the way we look at it, a chapter?
A chapter, yeah. Yeah.
Maybe it's talking about Paul's street cred, that he can hang out with these movers and shakers in Athens. And
so we like power.
Yeah, we sure do.
And Paul's got some in order to sort of command this audience.
And so that's important to us. That power that he has over wealthy, religious leader, academics, all those people. Is that what I say?
To say what? I think that's the second part of that.
Okay.
To say what? And I think that the answer to that second half is to say that someone was raised from the dead.
So that he could bring the message of true resurrection.
Exactly.
To not just the lowly and the margins, like has
Right.
been done in the
Oh,
past,
okay.
but to
Very
bring it into
cool.
the center of life, and intellectual and powerful people.
There
Is
you
that
go. I think you hit it right on the head there.
interesting?
Yeah.
Well, I was just really kind of blown away and surprised by the beautiful language and rhetoric in his speech. It's like we were reading John. It's really, really beautiful.
So what
You know,
does
the
that
God who
say?
And Catherine, what that goes about is earlier he says that he's not very good at speech, that he's better writing or having someone writing. And so here we're hearing this beautiful, as you said, this beautiful speech, as opposed to what he has said, and maybe sarcastically in another letter, I'm not very good at talking, but.
Yeah. So what does that say to you about the actual writings?
Who wrote it?
Who wrote it?
Who
We
wrote
had a
it?
speechwriter.
Yeah, was it his
Speechwriter.
speechwriter? Was it Timothy who was?
Maybe Timothy?
Whom was
He
it?
says he's sending Timothy down later.
And in the end, I think Catherine's observation of the beauty of this language is important, and in the end, does it matter so much about?
It did to the Greeks,
Yeah. Well,
because they
certainly,
read that flowery speech.
yeah, they were affected by it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and then when he said so that they would search for God and perhaps grope for him and find him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
indeed, he is not far from each one of us. That's really, it just speaks so powerfully to all of us.
Yeah, yeah, and that importance of God is with us, that the Romans did not, that wasn't a part. Their gods were out there in the universe doing terrible and horrible things to humanity.
Human need for relationship,
Sure,
right?
there you go too. The closeness of this God. Paul is next, and then Ann Wonke.
Well, looking a little bit ahead of this passage we did and looking up a few things on my phone, he didn't stay in Greece very long. I mean, it was a very short trip. And immediately he left and he went to Corinth for 18 months.
Yeah, those Corinthians.
Yeah, because this is not his first journey, this is his second journey. And it says that after he was converted, he spent 11 to 14 years just preparing to go on these trips. And then he went to Damascus and Arabia for 3 years. And then he recruited some buds, and then they went on these other journeys. So they're saying that he was probably in Athens somewhere around between 47 and 50 AD. But then he spent a year and a half in Corinth. He spent 3 years in Ephesus. So some places he obviously thought needed more talking to.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. Yeah, and
So-
we can see that in the letters. Let's go with Ann Wonke next, and then Mary Lou. Ann, do you remember what you wanted to say? It was a while back. Okay.
No, I wasn't.
Okay. Mary Lou.
Well, I guess my question then is, why didn't he stay in Athens? Was there so few people who were coming to his side? Or, that's my question. Why did he leave?
Why such a short trip to Athens?
Did he ever go back?
No.
Okay.
Not that I remember.
Does it have to do maybe, Mary Lou, with the people that were converted and what their level of abilities in that city were in that area? Were they already leaders? We have one of them was a leader. So maybe he felt that they were good to go. Did any of them travel with him?
Yeah.
I mean,
We don't have
those are so many things we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing that could be coming up is that he went right away to Corinth. This has got to stop. To Corinth. And he in his first comments Corinth is having big problems.
Yeah. Yep.
And so he gets there quickly, but what I was gonna say something about,
Yeah,
oh,
it
just out
could
of curiosity, so obviously he was conversant not only in Latin and Hebrew, but in Greek also, because would the Greeks, who didn't like the Romans very much, been conversant in that language? It's kind of just a side thought.
Well,
Maybe
he was
only, yeah, sorry.
he was from an educated family. I
Yeah,
mean,
so he would have,
Mhm.
yeah,
and Greek was probably, I'm just guessing here, the ideal. I mean, that's really where Roman education was gleaned from
right,
where Roman education was gleaned.
yeah,
Um,
thank you. Just curious, just,
yeah.
it's,
So maybe he only had reservations for 2 nights, guys.
That's right.
yeah.
And
Exactly.
they're done that.
Right.
Paula.
I just read something interesting. It's my little intro to Romans, which comes right after Acts. It said for several years of intense missionary activity and of more than ordinary stress, Paul had been engaged in collecting contributions from the Gentile churches of Greece and Asia Minor for the needy Jerusalem church. It was his hope that these gifts would allay certain suspicions of him and his work, which some members of the church felt and had been a source of anxiety. So now this collection was complete, and now he's in Corinth and he's going to start using it.
Using the money. Yeah, that's a good reminder that seems to be
Because the Greeks didn't get a letter. I mean,
yeah, no, the Greeks didn't get a letter. They just he just asked for their money.
just got a visit.
I do want to spend just a few more moments on on the passage, on that one sentence again, that he has given assurance to all by raising him from the dead. And when those who were listening heard of the resurrection of the dead, some scoffed, but others said, "We will hear you again about this." That one little sort of throwaway sentence about their curiosity around what this resurrection must be, and what Matthew Skinner raises here, and which is similar to the thing, you know, to what I wonder about is that there is no you cannot argue from reason for the resurrection.
Mhm.
And that's, you know, this is a group of people who argue from reason. You know, they're Platonists, they're people whose
Right.
cosmology is well developed, and you cannot argue the resurrection from reason. You argue the resurrection from experience and from the ability to say, this is how God is near us. We do in our lectionary this Sunday. We also hear from the Gospel of John, and in that story we hear about the advocate. I'll give you an advocate to be with you forever. So we hear that story about what resurrection looks like and how God is near. And I just think that that's kind of an important piece of how of this particular storytelling. It God has spoken, God has raised Jesus from the dead. All of this is what Paul carries into the conversation. And he doesn't argue resurrection. He states that.
It comes back to what Catherine brought up as verse 27, so that they would search for God and perhaps grope for him and find him.
Yeah.
He was also appealing to their emotional and their relationship need, their need for God, something bigger than them.
And something that's not in stone, that they are
Right.
Something-
Physically, like relationship
Right.
bigger than them, something that nurturing or yeah, it's very interesting.
Exactly.
It's interesting that he's so, in that verse, he says, perhaps grope for him and find him. So perhaps they're going to grope for him and find
Oh,
him.
yeah.
Whereas in the next section, he's so just kind of puts his hand down. He has fixed a day on which he will have the world judged in righteousness, and it's very definite. Whereas this other earlier verse is much more nuanced. You perhaps will grope and for him and find him, but maybe you won't.
Yeah.
And maybe you won't
that is an
search,
interesting-
right? Maybe you don't. Yeah, that's very interesting.
I think it does represent the difference in how Paul encounters and engages the different people to whom he goes. He does know his audience
Yeah.
in all of those different places. And I think that's one of the things that over the years, as we've studied Paul, that we've had to come to terms with is that Paul does know his audience and his message does change from audience to audience, from group of people to group of people. And over time, Christians have wanted to sort of place on Paul some sort of a consistency of message, consistency of behavior, consistency, and it just isn't there. He knows his audience, and that's not to lessen anything Paul has to say. In fact, I think it's a lesson to us about how God loves God's people. Just
Well, the next in chapter 18, at the very beginning, he says, Paul went to see them, and because he was of the same trade, he stayed with them, and they worked together. By trade, they were tent makers, very down to earth.
Yep.
These were his people, tent makers. He just wanted to stay with them for a while and work together. So he goes from this really lovely rhetoric, really beautiful talking, kind of more down to earth.
And he has some things to say to those Corinthians as well.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, especially as we go on, we won't go on. I don't know if that's next week's reading or not. When after this wonderful discourse with the Athenians, where he talks to the Jewish people, says he shook his clothes and says, "Your blood be on your own head." Yeah, he's from now on he'll go to the Gentiles. Yeah, that's an important turning point later on.
Oh, did we talk about all this when we were going through Acts? I
have my.
don't remember it.
No. So next week we go back to the beginning of Acts for Sunday morning.
Okay.
It's a funny way to read through Acts. So to answer your question, Catherine, this group has read through Acts once together, right?
Yeah, we read that
yes.
Skinner book together.
Yeah.
So
Did we read Skinner before or after we read Romans?
After we read Skinner just last year.
Okay.
I've never read Romans with you.
Oh, really?
Hey,
No.
everybody.
Maybe we should do that again, because boy, oh boy, is that. So we read Romans for Normal People
Yeah,
Mhm.
by,
Yes,
by
that
Peter
was so good.
Enns. And
Yep.
that really, really was a change for
It
us.
wasn't by Peter Enns. It
Oh, who
was,
wrote that? Oh, was that other person?
yeah, I can't remember his name. Who he wrote Romans for Normal People, but he also wrote a more academic Romans that I've not read. But that
everybody,
Romans
did
really
we,
changed.
did we read the Matthew Skinner book? Because I'm trying to find it
Yes.
in my library here and I'm
Yes.
going,
Yes, we did.
Yeah,
oh,
Yeah.
I should have it somewhere. If not, I'm going to have to reorder it.
Yeah, we
We
read.
ju- we just
Want that.
Was it just last Easter
it
season?
was just last winter we
Yeah.
read
Okay,
it.
so I've got it tucked in here somewhere. Thank you.
Good. You should. It's a really great one to keep referring to, because
Yeah, I know.
there's always something good in.
Must have.
So that's why I've been saying to those of you who haven't read it through to keep reading it and use it to bring into this conversation about Acts.
You know, Catherine, every time we read something, we get into a different part of it, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it does seem to me too, like this seems all new. Even though
Yes,
how many times have I read
absolutely,
it,
Annette.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and I think that and that is one of Skinner's point. I mean, he subtitles his book Catching Up with the Spirit. And I think that one of the points is that when one takes seriously the work of the Spirit, every single time you come to this, you come with a new place. You
Mhm.
come with because that's the nature of spirit, right? Constantly change. I know sometimes people are afraid of the word change when it comes to God, but constantly changing us, constantly refining and reforming and shaping. And so, yes, every single time it's different and
Mhm.
there's something new to be said. So Sharon and then Jane Korsberg.
Well, if we're going to look at John, the gospel reading for Sunday, where Jesus talks about leaving an advocate, a new advocate.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the arc of this whole crazy God story that first there's this being out there who creates the whole world and measures out punishment and grace and whatever. And then there's Jesus that comes from God only knows where and gets resurrected in the end. And now we're supposed to believe in this thing
Yeah.
that floats around in the air.
Yeah.
It's just
yeah, exactly.
no wonder there are so many atheists.
Yeah.
Right.
It is-
And
it is
that
not by reason.
none of that argument is from reason. That
Exactly.
the
Right.
whole argument is from how we experience all of what you said, grace and love and sacredness and the nearness of this thing that we call spirit. And that Jane, I'm not forgetting you, but I want to just say with because Sharon pointed us to it, that this advocate. So in that the first line in John that we are reading on Sunday, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments, and I will ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate. So not only are we not left alone, but we have never been alone, right? If there is another advocate, it infers that there's always been this constancy of spirit with us. And that's mind blowing.
Mhm.
Okay, Jane Korsbergen, and then we'll move to John for a few minutes.
What you were saying before, Kathy, and now I can't paraphrase that, but I think you can see that same kind of connectedness, how reading the Bible, sometimes I'm reading, it's like it's not connecting, and the next time I go into the same passages, it's like, woo, all the lights went on. And I think where he's talking in 17 at the very end there, and he talks about when he brought up the resurrection, some of them started laughing and they walked off, but nobody is like, they're at a different place. And when they come back and talk about this again, they'll see something that they didn't see the first time around. And it's that whole idea of walking the path, dancing the dance, learning more today than we knew, 5 years ago. The growth, the vitality, the everydayness of it.
Yeah. That this walk is an everyday affair. Yeah.
It begins.
And the deepening of that. Yeah. And I would suggest that the deepening is the accompaniment of the Holy Spirit.
Yes. Yes.
And bells.
Showing the way, lighting the way. However that, picking us up off the ground when we
Well, and it's kind of like light and color. I mean, it's kind of what I work with, right? And if it's a cloudy day, color is different.
Yeah.
Differently. And if it's a rainy day, it's even different than a cloudy day. But if it's sunny, oh my goodness, we can see color like crazy. And I think that that's also how we see scripture. It depends on where we are emotionally, what our needs are, what happened yesterday, what happened last year, what our relationship with our spouse, our children, our neighbor, all of those go into what we're looking at every time, as well as the everyday, the continually studying. And, as I think it's really important, this line that we can't argue it from reason, but we argue and learn and understand God through our experiences and our relationships.
Yes.
That's really important as we talk to people to meet their need, to talk about their need and see what their need is. And then how does God fill that? I mean, I don't think we always can communicate that, but by being there, by being accessible, we are the hands and feet of God.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just really processing today. All the stuff we've talked about.
There you go. Well, and that's what John, so that's what John, the gospel writer John, constantly points us to, is relationship. And so when we read this passage that says, we are not left bereft. We are not left alone. We are left with this spirit. And sometimes that feels ephemeral and undefined and hard, but especially, John, every time we hear that, every time we read that, we think relationship. Then I think it starts to then really work in us. And love one, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. What are my commandments? Love God, love one another. So those commandments are about relationship. They're not about do this, do that, and don't do that, right? They're about how are we in relationship? How is God part of that relationship? And how are we accompanied and supported and loved and filled with grace in the midst of the relationship we're called to?
And how do we respond to such a great love?
Yes, exactly. Paula?
Two things. Have we picked up next book?
We have not.
Have we?
We have?
I don't know,
No.
Sharon.
No, but
How long are we
Kathy,
going to keep
Jane
doing this?
Korsberg and I were hoping you could spend a minute with us when we're done.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, do you have a thought?
We
And
do
the-
have a thought, but it's not a book.
Okay. The second thing I wanted to say, I don't know how many of you listen to podcasts, but our priest has one that it's usually a sermon. It's called, his podcast is called Contemplative Episcopalian. And his sermon last Sunday was superb.
Mm.
And it was, he says, Jesus says, the words that I say to you, I do not speak of my own, but the Father who dwells in me. My friends, existence is relationship. Relationship is existence. And it just gets better from there. I mean, we all were kind of blown away.
Mm.
Were you, Sharon? I thought it was just
Yeah, I watched online because I wasn't feeling very well,
okay.
but it made me think of something that I need to talk to him about that maybe we can do for faith formation, adult
Okay.
faith formation.
Well, I always listen to it after and it's also, you can read it because I don't hear real well and he's rather soft spoken.
Yeah.
And a tad of a mumbler. And so
Yep.
I always go back and read it. And this one was just very, very good.
No.
Okay, I will see you all next week.
Adios.
So I think we'll just keep going like we have until we make a decision about what we're going to do differently. Does that sound okay?
Mhm.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean, we
can
can
we-
do this at least until Pentecost.
Yeah, till Pentecost, which is just a couple of weeks away, right?
I
May
know,
24th.
yeah. So don't go away, Kathy.
Okay. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye, you guys.
Hey,
Everybody.
have a great week.
Hi, Gail.
You
I
too.
didn't know you were here.
She was
I snuck in.
So what are you two? Are you going to talk about a book?
Well, I mean, this is not a big secret. If you want to hang on, that's fine. Jane
Just a minute.
and
I'm
I-
gonna stop recording, however.
Oh, good idea.
Okay.